With that, welcome inside this midweek edition of Big Ten Today. Rick Pizzo joined by Trent Meacham. The day after Purdue did exactly what it had done a year ago. Second straight year, the Boilermakers claimed the Big Ten regular season title in outright fashion. First program to pull that off in some 17 years. You have to give credit where credit is due because Purdue found a way from behind on the road against a really good team to get it done.
Yeah, and I thought, Rick, how this game opened, I thought this was Illinois for the taking, and Purdue, we'll get into it more, but every question mark potentially that I had, they answered last night. Big Ten champs, give them a ton of credit. They deserve it.
It is the big story as Purdue, which had already locked up the #1 seed in the Big Ten tournament and a share of the title, made it official and outright on Tuesday, 77-71. Zach Edey was the story early, but he got help from guys like Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and others. Matt Painter and company, it is never easy to win one. To go back-to-back and to do it in this league, something certainly to be proud of.
Winning the Big Ten is still, it's such an honor because it's so hard. Think about the venues that you have to go into. And I know it's not a perfect schedule always, but, we had to go into Wisconsin. We had to go into here. We went into Indiana. We didn't play at Michigan State, just kind of thinking, obviously, we got beat at Nebraska and got beat at Northwestern. But all those venues, man, are so difficult. And there's other ones, obviously, as you guys know. But I think that says something for our guys to be able to, being 7-3 on the road in the Big Ten is quite an accomplishment.
Little plays. It's a little plays. When you get a stop and you got 3 guys around the ball and nobody even makes an attempt to get on the floor for it, those send you home. Life's, and I told them, it's winning and losing. And there's winners and losers in life. And you can't not go make those plays. And, we've got to get them to understand the urgency of the end, the abruptness of the end. If you do it, you don't do it, you go home. And, we have a loose ball, just an unfortunate bounce. I thought they made not a very smart play. And the Jones kid shot it really quick, and we make a great defensive play, and the ball bats up in the air, and they come up with it, and it leads to a 3. But again, we just have to rebound the basketball better and come up with those loose balls, and those were defining moments in the game that they made, and they made us pay for every one of them.
In a game of this quality between two teams that are this talented, it always does come down to the little things. Let's work our way through this one chronologically because you mentioned at the start of the show, the beginning of the game went exactly the way that Brad Underwood would have scripted it. Illinois was good offensively. Zach Edey was the only option for Purdue, and it looked like Illinois was doing what Nebraska and others had done, saying, Edey, we're going to give you yours. We're going to let everybody else try to beat us. It didn't work in the first half, and Edey was the only reason I thought that Purdue was down just 6. It really should have been double digits at the half.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how Illinois came out. They looked like the aggressor. They were in attack mode. They took the fight to Purdue. And, I thought this game was set up for Illinois to win. When you think of that environment, when you think of the stakes and Illinois potentially having a case for a Big Ten title if they got a win last night, they were aggressive. They got out in transition a little bit. They looked like they were overwhelming Purdue with their length and quickness across the board, but Purdue continued to play through their big fella. He kept them in the game. Terrence Shannon never got going in the game, and then, Purdue made all those plays late.
Yeah, Shannon had 11, but he took 13 shots to get there. He just didn't really look like the guy that we've seen since he returned from that suspension. You go after the break, and Illinois decided to change strategy a little bit. We're not going to let Edey crush us anymore. And the guys from the outside did a really good job. One of the biggest question marks all year long with Purdue has been, what does Fletcher Lawyer give you? Because he can be a defensive liability. He needs to be willing to take and make big shots. I thought he was phenomenal on Tuesday night.
We got to give him some credit because this team's so good, so you think about where do we need to go, where can we nitpick, and oftentimes Lawyer falls victim to that. But he was big time last night, 16 points. When that game was tied, right at 64, Marcus Damask went on a run. Then Terrence Shannon hit a couple free throws to give Illinois the lead with about 3.5 minutes left. Lawyer made the next 7 buckets, or 7 points. He was big, he was aggressive, he was confident, not just shooting threes, going to the basket. As a team, the three-point line, Purdue 9 for 16 versus Illinois 4 for 16. So they both shoot the same amount, Purdue's plus 15, though, from beyond the arc. Now, on the season, they're 41%. They're like second in the country in three-point percentage. So this team is shot it well. They get great looks because of Zach Edey. They share the ball well. I would also say, yes, Illinois tried to double or scrape down a bit more on Zach Edey, but to me, it was still a little bit in between. If you're going to double, you got to come with some real pressure,
you want to be
real
all
heat.
in or all out.
And that's what Nebraska did. That's what Northwestern did. Illinois was kind of in between. You can't play that game. At 7'4", he's going to see over the top. It's easy passes. Illinois, I like to see them be more aggressive, but man, give Purdue so much credit. As good as Zach Edey was, 28-8, only got to the free throw line 4 times. So Illinois, did a decent job. He was 13 for 23 from the field, but down the stretch, it was all the other guys. Zach Edey scored his last bucket with about 7.5 minutes left. It was Lawyer. It was Jones. Gillis hit a couple threes. And then Braden Smith, the dagger. I look up that matchup, Braden Smith, Terrence Shannon. I thought, okay, Terrence Shannon, this is a first-team All-American. He's guarding Braden Smith. He might take him out of the game, and he did a decent job, but give the battle to Braden Smith, no doubt, because he was guarding Shannon on the other end and really kept him out of the paint and then hit that dagger with everything on the line. Man, I'm big-time shot in that moment.
Now, Zach Edey sent out a social media post before that game that said,
it, yeah.
If you don't have Braden Smith on your All-American ballot, leave me off too. That is true love and belief in your teammate. And I got to tell you, the ice water in the veins move, sometimes it's overplayed, but Smith has done this time and time again. That three that he hit with Terrence Shannon Jr. right in his face, a bigger, taller, longer defender. We've seen Braden Smith become this kind of player, and I know sometimes because he's a little bit diminutive in terms of his size, he gets overlooked in comparison to other players. I'm not sure there's another point guard out there that I would want running my offense right now with as confident as he is. Braden Smith could be a difference maker in the NCAA tournament, in my opinion.
Oh, he's got a swagger about him.
Yes, he does.
And he's got a chip on his shoulder that I think, look, if you look at his stature and his size, you can't play this game at this level if you don't have it, and he's got it in spades. I think he's one of the biggest gamers in the Big Ten, and Lawyer as well. Okay, he's gone through some stretches where he hasn't scored, but he's also come up big against some big opponents throughout this year. Had a big game against Tennessee.
He's not scared.
No, not at all. So if I'm Matt Payne or if I'm a Purdue fan, I love that backcourt because they can get going. Lawyer can get going at any moment. But playing with Braden Smith, the ball in his hands, you love your odds.
To me, this answered a lot of questions. If there were concerns about Purdue in the postseason this year, specifically in the NCAA tournament, they were answered for me last night because I'm in agreement with Raphael Davis, who has said all year that Lance Jones is the difference maker. Other than that late three, Lance Jones had a horrific game on Tuesday night on both ends of the floor, and Purdue still found a way to win against a really good team. So to me, this answers a lot of questions. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding when we see the bracket.
And I would say the questions I have, okay, you're in a tough environment. You check that. You're playing from behind most of the game. You got that. Difficult matchups. I thought what Illinois presented with their guards, with their length across the perimeter, with the big men in Coleman Hawkins that can bring Edey out. Okay, you answer that call. Others stepping up at the end of the game, you answer that. 20 assists to 8 turnovers, you take care of the ball. So they answered every call. Rick, we also talked about a guy like Cam Heide. Did not score. But he was the only one that did a good job on Marcus Damas. So in a critical moment in the game, he really helped stymie Illinois' offense, despite not scoring, had an impact on this game.
And I do want to touch on Illinois from a positive standpoint as well. I know you lose, you give up the opportunity to be a number 1 seed. Well, that opportunity was gone to at least share the Big Ten regular season title. You're still going to get a double bye. You're still in very good position to be the number 2 seed. And in my estimation, still a really dangerous out when you get into the tournament. Purdue knows what they're seeing. Purdue knew this game was on the schedule. You knew how hard Illinois is to match up with 1 through 5. That doesn't necessarily happen in the NCAA tournament on short rest. This, to me, does not change at all the way that I feel about Illinois still being a team that can make a run to the Final Four once we get to the tournament.
Yeah, that would not surprise me at all if they make a run in either the Big Ten or NCAA tournament. They didn't check the boxes that I would like to see them check. In terms of winning a big game, I think there's still maybe some question marks with the rotations down the stretch. I thought Gary A played well. He was not in much that second half. The inability to get Terrence Shannon going. I just like to see them run some stuff for him to get him in some space. inability to get stops at critical moments. But I'll still say, hey, this game was there for the taking against a team like Purdue when they're shooting the ball so well, and there's no doubt this team can make a deep run. So I'm excited to see what they can do here the rest of March.
I have a sense as well that when we get into the tournament that Marcus Domask may start to become a household name. Because even inside the Big Ten, I was in attendance in West Lafayette when these teams met for the first time, and there were Purdue fans asking, hey, who's this number 3 guy? He's pretty good. He's really good. And nationally, I don't think he's getting the attention he deserves.
Oh, he has, and maybe some of it's come on in the Big Ten season. He did not have it in the non-conference for the most part, but how he plays is so different. And that's what makes him so effective. I think his footwork, his strength, once he gets within 15 feet from the basket, there's not many players I've seen have success guarding him. And then the team around him, it's a really tough thing to stop. So I'm looking forward to seeing what him, and despite an off night from Terrence Shannon, those two in particular do this month of March.
There was a play that Domask made on Tuesday night where he was backing down, then got into the paint. Edey slid over to help defend, and Domask came up with this beautiful little step through. He's just a guy who knows how to play basketball, and typically you get into the tournament-type scenarios, those are the guys that can go off in March and become household names. Would not be surprised if that were the case at all with Marcus Domask. We are almost ready for the 2024 Big Ten Women's Basketball Tournament presented by TIAA. A pair of first-round games on Wednesday, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, and the homestanding Minnesota Golden Gophers. You see all of Thursday's second-round matchups, and then the 4 top seeds. They won't play until Friday. Those teams are Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, and Indiana. It should be a terrific week in the Twin Cities, and we head there right now. Big Ten women's basketball analyst Shimmy Gray-Miller inside the Target Center. And Shimmy, this tournament, for the first time in its history, is sold out. Give us a sense of what you expect from the environment this weekend in Minneapolis.
Incredible. I mean, you can already see fans. I was walking over here today from the hotel, and there's already fans. They were out and about getting coffee this morning. I mean, the signage all over the city as soon as you landed in Minneapolis Airport, signage everywhere for the Big Ten Women's Tournament. It already feels electric, and we haven't even played a game yet, Greg.
Shimmy, Ohio State and Iowa are the top 2 seeds. Obviously, they split during the regular season. Ohio State also lost to Michigan. Iowa lost a couple of other games. But throughout the course of the year, they were the best 2 teams in the league. How much of a separation is there? How big are they in terms of being considered the 2 favorites to reach Sunday's championship game?
As the separation is as big as the number of people that are going to be filing through this arena in the next few days. Those 2 teams, they're playing for an opportunity to have a number 1 seed, and no other team in this tournament can say that. So there's a lot at stake for both those teams. You know, obviously, Indiana plays very well at home, especially when they're healthy. But right now, that's a question mark for them. They're not at home, and we don't even know how healthy they are with the 2 injuries to Mackenzie Holmes and Lily Meister in the last game of the season. Michigan State, they've been hot lately. You know, but right now it's Ohio State and Iowa. There's a big separation between them and everyone else. Not saying that I think that it's guaranteed that one of those teams will win, Rick, but there is a pretty big gap right now between them and the rest of the field.
Shimmy, we all know, those of us who have covered this sport for long enough, no such thing as guarantees in the postseason. The Buckeyes were so good during the regular season. Best ever conference mark under Kevin McGuffin, more than a decade at 16-2. What's the key for them to win 3 games and hoist the trophy on Sunday at the Target Center?
Cody McMahon, and particularly, and I'll explain why, they've got to go inside. In game 1 and against Iowa, when they were so magnificent in that overtime win, she had 33 points. Game 2, she had 11. But most importantly, in the game 1, they got 39 shots in the paint. In game 2 at Iowa the other day, 25 shots in the paint. And there was a stretch in that second game in Iowa City the other day where Cody McMahon was just dominant. They throw it to her inside. The double comes late. You know that she wants to finish with her right. It doesn't matter. Good luck stopping her. And I was like, okay, here we go. Ohio State's rolling now. They've got the formula. They're going to keep going inside. Very next possession, they took a 3. Next possession, a different person took a 3, both misses. And they did make 14 threes in that game, but they also took a lot of contested mid-range jump shots. So for me, Iowa State, it's got to be going inside, being intentional about going inside, and getting Cody McMahon rolling.
How about the 2-seed Iowa, the Hawkeyes in search of a third straight Big Ten tournament championship? We know what Caitlin Clark is going to bring every single day of the week. We don't know the injury status of Molly Davis as of yet. What about the rest of the team, and who else has to contribute to get this team over the hump?
Everybody, especially with Molly Davis being out. And I'll tell you this, Iowa is at their best when two or more people other than Caitlin Clark has double digits. I mean, you can go back and you can look at what it looks like in their wins versus their few losses. And Molly Davis, actually, I'm even going to take her out of that because she's pretty consistent in wins or losses. Her averages, her numbers, her effective field goal percentage is about the same. But it's everyone else that I'm circling. It's Gabby Marshall, Kylie Fierbach, Hannah Stolke, Cydia Falter, Kate Martin. And their few losses, all of those players, their percentages are down, their effective field goal shooting is down, and their scoring is down. So for Iowa to win 3 straight, which, that's what all these people are here to see. They're coming to watch Caitlin Clark, and that is fine. We just want them in the building. We don't care why they're here. But in order for those guys to go home happy on Sunday, it's got to be 2 or more players other than Caitlin Clark who steps up and gives the Hawkeyes double-digit scoring.
There's no question a majority of the fans would love to see Iowa-Ohio State round 3 in Sunday's championship game. But other than that potential matchup, Shimmy, do you look at the bracket? Is there another potential matchup that intrigues you?
Yeah. I really can't wait to see the Michigan State-Iowa matchup if that were to come to fruition. I would love to see that. They only played one time during the regular season. It was at Iowa City. Michigan State, we know how Michigan State lost. We've seen the highlight a million times. It was an incredible shot, just one more notch in Caitlin Clark's legacy belt. It was just a kind of a weird ending with the shooting foul. Was it a shooting foul? Was it not? It doesn't matter. Iowa won. I would really love to see that matchup on a slightly more neutral court, and just to see the Michigan State. I just think Robin Fralick has her team playing so well right now.
Obviously, the Spartans got that double bye by virtue of a win last day of the regular season and a Nebraska loss. So let's go to possible surprises. So we eliminate any of the teams that got double byes and won't start until Friday. Is there a potential surprise team seeded 5 or lower that you think could make a deep run in Minneapolis?
I felt like Nebraska kind of let it slip away on the last day of the regular season. They had a double bye. All they had to do was beat Illinois, and they couldn't. I like their inside-outside presence. They're healthy right now. I think you're getting more from Logan Nisley, more from other players not named Alex Markowski or Natalie Potts or Jazz Shelley. So I'd like to see Nebraska and see what kind of run that they can make. But I'm also really keeping an eye on Maryland, Rick. Maryland right now, I don't think it's guaranteed. Some people have them in, some people don't. So as far as the tournament, I think that they need to at least have one more win to kind of solidify their NCAA tournament chances.
And they open up against that very same Illinois team that knocked off Nebraska on Sunday. Should they win, they would then get to match up with Ohio State. Obviously, win those 2 games, there's no question about Maryland. Probably, though, just 1 win away from getting a spot in this year's NCAA tournament. From teams, let's now turn our attention to players. Other than Caitlin Clark, is there an individual player out there that you think has the ability maybe to grab the nation's attention this week at the Target Center?
I can take your pick from anyone from Michigan State. I just really like the way all those players are playing right now. But if I had to just really hone in on one player, I'm going to say Cody McMahon. She is the X factor. When Ohio State, when they win, she's about 50% from the field. And the few losses that they've had, she's shooting 28%. That's a significant drop off. 33 points in game 1 versus Iowa versus the 11 or so that she had in game 2. I just think that the sophomore she's sensational. Everybody knows what she wants to do, but good luck trying to stop her. She's expanded her 3-point range, but what really just makes her deadly is her ability to score in the paint with her combination of size and power and athleticism, her spin move. So Cody McMahon, I think that Ohio State will go as far as she goes.
All right, Shimmy, before we let you get back to the real work that's at hand on location in Minneapolis, we do need to touch on tonight's game. First game is between Northwestern and Purdue. What should we be watching for?
Well, you got two teams that are playing for pride right now. I mean, Katie Geralds is probably one of the most competitive coaches that I've ever met in my life. I can't get the scene of her throwing her water, slamming her water bottle on the ground last year after Jayla Smith hit that awesome dagger three to win it last year in the first round of the tournament, in her first game of the tournament. So right now, I like Purdue's seniors. I know Caitlin Harper's out for the season, but they have three other seniors that have a lot that they're playing for. And then I really love Purdue's freshmen. So right now, you're looking at it like this. Postseason, you're not freshmen anymore. You're sophomores. So now your sophomore year starts now. And then as far as Rutgers, Coquise is still really building that team at Rutgers. So we'll see, Minnesota's injured. They're kind of hobbling to the finish. So we'll see if Coquise can't take advantage of that with her team.
Yeah, no question. Could have been a very different year for Dawn Plitzuweit and company had Mara Braun been able to go the entire season. Shimmy Gray-Miller, we really appreciate the time. Know it's a busy day for you and the entire crew up in Minneapolis. Enjoy. The games are just about to begin.
This is Christmas, Rick. It's Christmas. Thank you.
Fueled by Gatorade, an absolutely monster weekend for Minnesota's Jaxon Nelson. How about 5 lamplighters, 6 points, the 5 goals to 6 points, second best in each category, not just in the Big Ten, but in the nation last weekend as the Gophers split their final regular season series against Michigan at home. And as you may have guessed, today's big interview takes us to the Twin Cities as we welcome in Jaxon Nelson. Jaxon, let's start with the weekend. I mean, 5 goals, 6 points. What was flowing so well for you and your line offensively this weekend?
Yeah, I think we were just playing simple. We were getting pucks in, we were getting on the forecheck, and we were reloading above pucks, which really helps our D be able to pressure and get the puck back up to us and makes for good transition.
Now, that was your first ever collegiate Hattie. So how do you describe that feeling, especially the fact that it came in a win and it came in what you knew was your last regular season series inside Mariucci?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was kind of a heartfelt moment, and I had a lot of family and a lot of friends in attendance to watch, so that made it even better.
You're the first star this week inside the Big Ten for the first time in your career, and as I mentioned, it comes in your final regular season series at home. Let's look at the whole picture. What have the last 5 years at Minnesota been like for you?
It's been awesome. First year was freshman year, and it got cut short because of COVID. And the year after that, it wasn't really the same because we couldn't have everyone in the building and couldn't have all our fans. And in sophomore or my junior, senior year, we made it to the Frozen Four and came up a little short last year. And just trying to get back there again this year. That's the biggest goal of ours, and hopefully we can get it done.
I mentioned that's your first collegiate Hattie, but you're no stranger to scoring explosions. You set a Minnesota high school state record when you had 78 goals one year. That mark, along with single season points, career goals, career points, all still top 10 in state history. What do those records mean to you?
Yeah, it's kind of putting the small town of Laverne on the map, and wasn't really known for hockey, and then we ended up making the state tournament in my 8th grade year, and my 9th grade year we played in Hockey Day, Minnesota, and just kind of putting that town on a map. And they had a tough go at it in the section semifinals this year, but they're a pretty good team with a good program.
Anybody that's had the opportunity, been lucky enough to see the Minnesota High School State Championships, I mean, it's an event that's as good as it gets. So you mentioned leading your team there, and it was the first time they'd ever been to that point in the tournament. What do you look back on, and how do you remember that experience?
It was super eye-opening. We've never been there, and we still had a lot of fans. I think half the town of Laverne was there. So we always had that support, but we really didn't know. And it was just fun. And you look back at it, joke around with my buddies, and it's a good memory to have.
Now, you followed that up with 3 years in the USHL. You split your time between Omaha and Sioux Falls. How did that experience kind of shape you, not just as a player, but as a person as well?
Yeah, when I was in Sioux Falls, it was just trying to transition into that different hockey. It was a lot higher level, lot higher paced, and you had to kind of manage your shift lengths. In high school, you can get away with taking longer shifts, and in the USHL, you have 4 lines you can play. So it's a lot different, and just being able to maximize your time on ice. And then I was still living at home. So then when I moved down to Omaha, I was obviously living with a billet family and had a really good coach in David Wilkie, and kind of learned how to live by myself and play without my family always being there, and I think it was a good thing for me to do and not come in right away, and I think it turned out for me.
You mentioned the Frozen Four and then obviously the heartbreaker a year ago. Now you get one final run to get to that NCAA tournament championship game and win the national championship. It starts this weekend, the postseason does, against Penn State in the Big Ten tournament. You beat them 3 out of 4 during the regular season, including just a couple of weeks ago, back-to-back 3-0 shutouts. What will be the key for you guys to take care of business and advance to the semis?
Yeah, Penn State's a really good team. They're really good offensively, and they play hard, and they're always looking for offense. And if you play above pucks, which we did that last weekend against them, we did pretty good. So just being able to stay committed on the D zone and stay committed in the neutral zone to not try to get too offensive minded, and just play Gopher hockey.
Obviously, Justin Close was unbeatable that weekend, and that's been the case for a lot of this season. You guys have spent a lot of time together. You came into the Gophers together. You spent 5 years as teammates on this program together. Now, goalies are notoriously quirky. So I want to know, is Justin fit that mold, or is he more of kind of the standard you would never know? He stands between the pipes and lets guys fire 100-mile-an-hour slappers at him.
Yeah, I've actually lived with him for the last 4 years, so I've gotten to know him pretty well, and I'd say he's the most normal goalie I've ever been with.
That, by the way, is a low bar when you talk about normal goalies, because there's not a lot of them out there. In terms of his play, how have you seen him kind of evolve? Because when he got there, I don't think a lot of folks thought that he'd ever be in the position that he's in now, and certainly not playing at the level that he's been playing at for the last couple of yeyears.
Yeah, he's a really good goalie, and he's always super calm and collective. He never gets too worked up about anything, and if they score a goal, just like, whatever, it's make the next save. And he's just a really good goalie, and he worked super hard in those 2 years that he didn't play, and I think that helped him transition into the person, into the goalie he is today.
All right, now I want to know what your teammates say about you. I mean, are you like Grandpa Jaxon? Are you old man Nelson? I mean, do they lay into you a little bit? I mean, you got 18-year-old guys sometimes walking in that locker room looking at somebody who's like 6, 7 years older.
No, Justin has 2 more years on me, so they kind of look at him as a grandpa.
I love it. That's what you need, by the way. You need somebody a little bit older. That way nobody can make fun of you. Hey, let's finish with this. I take you off the ice because you're an outstanding student. You're an honors student. You already graduated last May with your degree in supply chain and operations from management from the Carlson School. What's next for you when the playing career is all said and done?
I actually live on a family farm, so probably go back to that eventually once I'm done with hockey, and try to take that over. Something I think it was my great grandpa at least started, maybe even before that. So it's been a generational farm, and hopefully I can keep that going.
Yeah, how did that kind of shape you? I mean, you work that hard like you have to as on a farm. I assume it makes a couple hours of practice seem pretty easy.
Yeah, I've kind of been used to the hard work, and the hot days in the summer is usually when it's the worst on the farm. But being in the cold drink and just getting a sweat in has never been a problem for me.
Working hard and hopefully working toward a spot in the Big Ten semis with a win over Penn State this weekend. And, of course, bigger things ahead as Jaxon Nelson and the Gophers look to get back to the Frozen Four this year, right next door in St. Paul. Jaxon, we appreciate the time. Best of luck this weekend. Look forward to following you guys throughout the postseason.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
The tip-off show. We're back with Trent Meacham. Let's start with Northwestern Michigan State. Wildcats have had a terrific year. Michigan State has been very up and down, right now in a little bit of a down cycle and needing badly to get things going in the right direction before you get to Minneapolis and hopefully get a bid to the NCAA tournament.
This is a big game, and you think about Northwestern, how they battled through injuries, maybe have overachieved as much as any team in our league. And Michigan State, based on preseason expectations, nobody's underachieved like them, but I still feel like they could have some March magic in them. Now, they got to get right. They got to get playing better basketball here to finish off. You think this is senior night. They got a lot of guys going through these ceremonies tonight. And I just expect them to come out on fire. I expect them to really push the pace. I want them to pick up the pressure. When you think of the depleted roster that Northwestern has, I would love to see Michigan State just get back to their brand of basketball. Pressure the ball, get out in transition. If they do that, this is going to be a tough one for Northwestern. But, hey, I'll never count Northwestern out. The smartest, grittiest team in our league, in my opinion.
What do you think this night is going to be like emotionally for the guys at Michigan State who have been through a lot over the last couple of years, who are well aware of what the expectations were at the beginning of this year and are even more so aware that they haven't lived up to those expectations? Now they're at home for the final time this season. Everybody's expecting what we've seen, what you've just mentioned, these patented Tom Izzo March runs. I feel like it could go one of two ways. You could absolutely, as you said, come out on fire, or you could feel the weight of the world when this game tips off.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of emotions. I think that building's going to be electric. It's crazy. This thing tonight, the kissing floor is going to be awesome, I think, okay? But Malik Hall, he was there with Cassius Winston. Well, so these guys have been through a lot. You think about their career and some of the COVID and all this stuff they've gone through. Well, here, you're in March. There's no more time left, right? Now's the time to get after it. I would expect for this team to finish strong. I think that's just in their DNA. That's in their coaches, their program's culture, the DNA of it. So I would expect them to finish strong, but they got to do it. This will not be an easy one. I don't care who Northwestern has, Langberg, Nicholson, wherever they're at injury-wise. Northwestern's tough. If Northwestern can keep it close, I would not have bet against them down the stretch. And also, Michigan State, they got to go to Indiana their next game.
Not easy.
I would like to see them get a couple wins, have some momentum. They could be dangerous in March, but, man, they got to get it done tonight, especially with senior night.
Cats nearly scored 90. It was 88-74 first time they met. I do want to briefly touch on Boo Buie because he has had such a phenomenal career, and getting the best play out of him at the end of his tenure at Northwestern. And to me, along with Terrence Shannon Jr. and Zach Edey, he is one of three guys that is an absolute lock for the All-Big Ten first team.
I would agree. And you think about his career, and he was like the Spartan killer, right? He always showed up big in these games against Michigan State, but kind of an up-and-down guy, and he's turned into a flat-out winner, a gamer, the most clutch player in our conference, maybe the country. He's done it so many times, and that's why, Rick, I'd say for Northwestern, their formula going on the road, maybe a depleted roster, they're not deep to begin with. If they can keep it close, and then you have your guy that you can make plays through at the end of the game.
You agree? Buie, no doubt, first team.
Oh, I would agree. Sorry if I didn't answer it. I would definitely agree.
I think the other two guys, by the way, I'm kind of getting off topic here. I'd go Domask and Smith because I think you got to award the teams that are 1-2. I know there's a lot of other guys out there.
Maybe Zach Edey too, in there, yeah.
Well, Zach Edey was one of the three
I would
guys
agree.
along with Shannon and Boo Buie.
Braden Smith and Marcus Domask, I would put them on there as well, Rick.
All right, let's transition to the second game that you'll see here on the Big Ten Network on Wednesday night. Indiana, you mentioned the Hoosiers. I give the Hoosiers a ton of credit because they could have mailed it in a couple of weeks ago. This season was not going the way that they expected. Guys were in and out of the lineup. They were so inconsistent. They've played arguably their best basketball over the course of the last 10 to 12 days. Now, this is a tough ask to go to Minnesota and play against a really talented Gopher team, but Mike Woodson has kept his team together late in the year.
Yeah, 2 wins over Wisconsin and at Maryland. Two good wins that they're coming off of. Xavier Johnson back, playing well. Their front court is really, really tough, and Mbako is playing. His game is elevated throughout the course of the season, playing great right now. I go back to the first matchup between these two teams, which Indiana won, and the post play was very even. So Payne and Garcia in Minnesota went for 31 and 19. Renew and Ware went for 33 and 20. So those guys were even. But the guard play from Indiana, we oftentimes don't see this, was the difference maker. Galloway had 10.7 assists, and Mbako had 19 in that game. So that was a difference. And I think tonight, it's going to be about the guard play again. Elijah Hawkins coming off a great game of 18 points, 8 assists. Cam Christie's been playing really well. In that matchup, Cam Christie, Mackenzie Mbako, two future pros sooner than later. Both guys have elevated their games in recent weeks. I think that's going to be a really fun one to watch. Those two guys go back and forth.
I think Xavier Johnson is the key for Indiana. I know he was really good against Maryland. He has been in and out of the lineup with injuries. He's been inconsistent, much like this team. But when he plays well and Trey Galloway doesn't have to do too much, then everything becomes easier for Indiana. Everything becomes easier on the inside for guys like Malik Renew and Khalil Ware. Khalil Ware, by the way, would be in the conversation for an All-Big Ten first-team slot. He has been phenomenally good this year. As for Minnesota, I don't think you can say enough about the year that Ben Johnson and this Gopher team has had. They're keeping alive hopes of the NCAA tournament. It's an outside shot, But right now, you get a couple of wins and you get one of those auto spots as one of the top 2 net teams from a Power 5 league, not in the NCAA tournament. Think about what they can build and think about what they could be if everybody stays put in Minneapolis.
Well, I love what Ben Jaxon has done, and listening to his press conferences, he's talked a lot about the process, and that was whether it was last year when they were losing or this year when they were winning. So I love that approach.
Joel Embiid. He wasn't talking about the process.
No, just like focusing on what you can control, and we're building something here. The language he used last year when they were losing is the same language he's using this year that they're winning, and I just love that from their coach. They've been so close in recent weeks, going at Purdue and at Illinois. Really had opportunities to win both those games. Played the 2 best teams in the league, tough on the road. Haven't gotten maybe that marquee win that they need, but if they can finish strong, Rick, they're going home for the Big Ten tournament. You never know what could happen, but tonight will be a tough one and a big one for the Gophers.
Yeah, I just think Minnesota, and listen, we can't predict, is Cam Christie going to test the NBA waters? Is Dawson Garcia a guy that's going to look at possibly going to the NBA? But if everybody that can come back does come back, I don't think it's crazy to see Minnesota as top 3 inside the league next year preseason.
I don't think Pharrell Payne has developed into a beast of a player. So you've seen Ben Jaxon, how he's developed guys, Elijah, how he's used guys from the transfer portal, how he's recruited, and they have a great foundation right now of players. They have some depth to them, so I would only expect them to rise from next year. We'll see how they finish off this season, too.
Minnesota, Indiana still with plenty to play for this week, and of course next week in Minneapolis as well. When we come take a look at the up-to-the-minute Big Ten men's basketball standings. Purdue has clinched the 1 seed, the outright Big Ten title. Illinois has secured a double bye. They're the only team that can say that in addition to Purdue. Northwestern Nebraska right now would be the teams above that first blue line. Don't have to play until Friday. You see the separation in that second blue line. Those 4 teams below would be involved in Wednesday's first round. Maryland and Michigan cannot climb out of that spot. Rutgers and Penn State can, so still plenty to be decided over the course of the next 5 days before we finish the regular season. So what is exactly at stake over those 5 days? Let's take a look at some teams that have the most to play for over the course of the next 5 days of the regular season and next week in Minneapolis. And there's no question. You start with the most obvious team here, and that's the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Iowa's got to play into the NCAA tournament, I believe, on Sunday. Against Illinois, these teams just met. It was back and forth, high-scoring affair. Iowa fell or lost that game 85-95 just a week or so ago in Champaign. Now they welcome the Illini to Iowa City. They've won 4 of 5, playing great basketball. Josh Dix has gone for 20-plus the last 3, shooting insane numbers. Their backcourt of Dix and Peyton Sanford and Tony Perkins has played as well as anybody in the country recently. I love how they're playing. Difficult matchup. They get this win, some momentum. We could see them in the NCAA tournament.
I think it's fascinating. You think Ohio State still has an outside shot to get to the NCAA tournament?
They won 4 or 5 as well. Some big-time wins recently. Had some good wins in the non-conference as well. So, yes, they are auditioning for the tournament if they can finish strong. Could Jake Diebler be auditioning for the head job at Ohio State next season? Remove that interim tag. I think both are long shots. But, Rick, I don't believe they're out of the question. And if they finish great, both those things, could happen.
1 game remaining at Rutgers. Minnesota, Wednesday night against Indiana, on the road against Northwestern. I think the Gophers have a slightly better chance to get there than Ohio State.
Well, yeah, and I mentioned earlier they've lost some tough ones that they would have looked so good on their resume, but, versus IU tonight at Northwestern, those would be 2 quality wins. If they could get those, get some momentum. They're playing at home in the Big Ten tournament. They're going to have the fans behind them. That Ben Johnson's talking about the belief of this team. They're right there on the cusp. Can they say, forget about next year, Rick? This is the year. Can we do it? Christie's playing great. Over 18 a game the last 3. Now's their time.
How about their seed possibilities? As high as 3, as low as 10. As for Michigan State, they're locked into playing Thursday. Can't play Wednesday, can't earn a double bye. They have Northwestern on Wednesday, and then they finish at Indiana.
They could lose these 2, and that would be 5 straight losses to the season.
Then I think they're on the bubble.
I think this is so important for them because assuming they're in the tournament, I believe that this team could make right with this season and go on a run with that quality of backcourt that they have, the experience that they have with Tom Izzo on the sidelines. I love to see them finish strong. They have the goods to do so, but they got to do it right now.
And Wisconsin's got to figure things out. Finally, they have Rutgers and then at Purdue to finish the year.
They've lost 7 of 9. They could lose 9 of 11 to finish the season. Rutgers just ran them out of the gym a few weeks ago. But I believe that they could turn it around as well, Rick, because of their depth, their experience. Chucky Hepburn's been playing better lately, about 15 points a game over his last 4. He's shooting it well. If he's more aggressive, they have that balance, they could do it as well, Rick.
Their resume, season-long resume, makes it a non-issue for Badger fans. They're not going to miss the NCAA tournament, but we talked about them a couple months ago as a potential #1 seed. Now you're just hoping to hold on to a single-digit seed at this point. For Trent Meacham, I'm Rick Pizzo. As always, we appreciate the hang with us here on